You mentioned Magic, and we talked about the past and what made you fall in love with the game. To me, it's a simple calculus when it comes to this conversation, why we shouldn't dump on the past. If the past doesn't matter, then the present doesn't matter. If we're not tethering the two together, then the thing just falls apart as far as meaning and importance go. And watching, I think it was some VHS tape that my dad got me where Magic Johnson was showing kids how to play. But that's not really what drew me, him showing how you dribble really fast in the ground and do those Pete Maravich drills. It was just interspersed with these highlights, which back then as a kid, highlights weren't so readily accessible, and they were absolutely mind blowing to see that sort of thing. And it is sad. It is sad to see this dismissal of what happened before. Both of us would acknowledge that the skill level is higher today. I think both of us would acknowledge that a lot of players, if you put them somehow with a time machine, which we don't have in the
Yeah.
past, given their advantages and training and everything else, that they would do great. But I don't know how the conversation has become this. Isaac Newton said, what was the shoulders of giants quote? I'm trying to remember. Oh, it was, let me see. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Somehow the conversation in the NBA has been from a few people I have seen so far because I've stood on the shoulders of midgets. It's bizarre. It's
Yeah.
just a bizarre way to go about it. And I get that they get it coming the other way. I get that there's the whole, hey, in our day, you couldn't play and all this erroneous, dismissive stuff from the old guard. But for whatever reason, Justin, maybe I'm wrong for it. I've got more of an issue with the younger. I've got more of an issue with the modern dismissing the importance of the past. I just,
Yeah.
it doesn't sit right to me. They helped build it. They helped progress you to this point that you are at. You don't need to dump on them. You don't need to mock Bob Cousy for not being whatever your view of an athletic marvel was in the late 1950s. It's just what are we doing? Where does this
Yeah.
end?
I agree with you. And it's like, wait to rip on the guys that come next, because that's what everybody else has done. And it's been
Yeah.
happening forever. Like Will Chamberlain did it. You can find the old quotes of him going, Patrick Ewing this, and, Bill Walton that, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Like there's video out there of Wilt doing the same thing. So Draymond, wait till you retire. LeBron, wait till you retire. Criticize the next generation. It's been happening forever. But don't criticize the people that have set the table for you. That's my opinion. Just like I'll discredit maybe somebody that's in their 20s and say you don't know what you're doing, but I'm not criticizing an 80-year-old that's offering me up advice, even if I disagree with it. And I loved your point about like what is today worth if we don't respect the history of the history of the game. Like you win in LA, it's more important to win there because of what Magic did before you, what Kobe did before you, and the level of importance, the history, and embedding yourself within that. Same thing with the Celtics. I mean, you're watching this documentary right now. What Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are doing carries added significance because what Red Auerbach and Bill Russell and John Havlicek and Larry Bird and Robert Parrish built, it adds to the significance. So I do miss, back in the day you'd have NBC, and maybe they'll go back to this where they'll go like, oh, well, the Lakers and the Celtics are meeting again. And they last did in 1969, game 7, where Bill Russell came back. And, that stuff is important to tell the story of the history of the sport so we understand the present of the sport.
Completely agree. And it really made an impression on me. I don't know if they still do it at Staples, but I remember going to Staples. This is back when the Warriors were not good. And so there wasn't a sense of pervasive tradition in the building.
Yeah.
I went to a game at Staples and they have that curtain fall down from the ceiling, this just flowing white, just curtain from ceiling to floor. And they play the montage of the Laker greats accelerating to today or whatever was today back then. And it filled you with a sense of this is part of a tradition. This is connected to something beyond this moment. And there's something really special in that. There really is.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
It doesn't serve us in any way to hate that. I understand that there's a sense right now to make the argument for them. I know Channing Frye was saying that the NBA has a nostalgia problem. There's a sense that the past is assaulting us, that the people from the past or the people clinging to the past are being dismissive of how great we are and what we are. But it just doesn't serve anybody to dump on the past. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't make me like the present any better to do it in actuality.
Exactly. But who exactly is also doing that, right? All right. So
Some
maybe
guy
it's
on
Charles
Twitter. I
Barkley and
don't know.
Shaquille O'Neal as the face of it. But like, did Bob Cousy ever say anything about the current day players? And he gets attacked? Like, I guess like John Havlicek's not Dave Cowens. Is Dave Cowens coming out and criticizing the current NBA player? Kind of just minding his own business, I think, somewhere in upstate Maine. And he's got to be thrown into the mix where, I could score 70 points. Like Mikal Bridges a couple of years ago, I did get into an altercation with him on social media because he said, LeBron would score 100 points against the 1986 Celtics when he was watching that documentary with Michael Jordan, right? The Last Dance, and Jordan got 63 on him. And it's like, well, no, you got to learn about what that team was in 1986. He probably wouldn't even, start for that team, as I pointed out on Twitter, and it got him all fired up. But yeah, I mean, think about
wait. I disagree. You're talking about LeBron at what age wouldn't start for the 86 Celtics? I got it.
Mikal Bridges.
Oh, Mikal Bridges. Sorry.
He might start over Danny Ainge. I'll give him that. So he could get the last starting spot over Danny Ainge. But he'd be the fifth Celtic there with Dennis Johnson and Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and Larry Bird, etc. And I just felt like you're going to take a shot at guys like that LeBron would score 100 points against them. That's one of the great teams of all time, the 1986 Celtics. But so that's one thing. And then like the other part is like, I don't know your specific story and how you fell in love with sports, but it's like, for example, you're a Celtic or a Yankee or a Laker fan, a Dodger fan, like your grandfather probably was, right? And then your father probably was, and now you are, and then you'll pass it along to your kid. So it's important to respect the history of the sport because that's how your father fell in love with it and then passed it along to you.
That continuum, I think, is so special and not discussed enough, that people do inherit fandom often from their parents, from their families, and there's something truly touching about that. There's something special about that. And this is similar to what I wrote recently about why I enjoy women's college basketball, while actually being honest that it is not nearly at the level of men's college basketball. There's a little bit of trepidation to doing that. And I enjoy things in their context. I found it thrilling. I liked when you posted the Bob Cousy highlights. When I first saw those many, many years ago, I found it thrilling. It's a lot of fun to watch Bob Cousy running around and doing these passes that nobody else was doing back then. I don't have to dump on him for being at a 39% field goal percentage or whatever he was at his peak. Back then, there was no 3-point line. Guys had not completely refined their jump shots. I understand all that. I enjoy watching him in his context, being great in his context, just like I enjoy Caitlin Clark being great in the context of the WNBA. And it doesn't take a lot of imagination to know why. It's almost like people are more comfortable doing the plumbers and firemen and dumping on the men of the past for not being up to whatever modern NBA snuff than they would do it for the women's sport, and they would get their head torn off. But they feel more comfortable. They feel more comfortable doing it to the past, and I just think it's just wrong to do it. It's like, yes, Bob Cousy, if you took him in a time machine, I think would have a lot of problems playing in the modern NBA game. So what? So what? He was great in his context. That's all you can do. You can only be great in your context.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's one of the reasons I went so hard at Redick over the years, because I felt that, he's got some validity. And LeBron, the same thing with the 250 points for Giannis, is people are going to grab on to what those guys say. They're like legitimate, names. So now all of a sudden the people that have been saying, fires and plumbermen can go, see, JJ Redick said, and JJ Redick's the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And he's a former player and he's a broadcaster. LeBron James, arguably the greatest player of all time. He's crapping on these guys. So it justifies me to do the same thing. So that's what really bothered me about those quotes a couple of years ago from JJ.
So you were there, right, when when Jerry West was asked about
Also,
JJ Redick's comments.
I asked
Yeah, it was your voice asking if memory serves. That is an incredible clip. Maybe if you guys haven't checked it out, you should, where Jerry West is asked about some of the dismissive comments. I can't remember everything Redick said about the past, but it is just honest and withering. Did you know in the moment that this was a viral moment that you were in?
As soon as he said it. Now, I'll give JJ a little bit of credit here because he wouldn't come on the show for years when he was a broadcaster because we attempted to get him on. But he did come on as soon as he got the Lakers head coaching job out there in Las Vegas. And the funny part is he sat in the same exact seat that Jerry West sat in when Jerry crushed him. So we hashed some things out, but it wasn't just Jerry West. I asked Jerry West about it. He crushed him. I asked Bob Cousy himself. That also went viral. And Bob Cousy crushed him. I asked a different question to Dominique Wilkins about Redick's comments about Steph Curry and Larry Bird and the physicality and shooting a three. And, Redick saying he's not a top 5 3-point shooter. And Dominique's like, what is this guy, stupid? He really ripped him. And, all 3 of those went viral. And I think there's another one of somebody attacking JJ. So I went to that question multiple times. Multiple legends crushed him. That bothered JJ. And I think he's over it now. But yeah, I mean, that Jerry West one I knew was going to take off.
So did he feel any sense of contrition, or did he just feel like, hey, I got lambasted, I said my piece, but I'm sticking with my guns?
He didn't address it with us when he became the Lakers head coach, so I don't know. It seemed like he kind of just ignored it when the thing happened. Maybe there was a tweet or two saying that he was misunderstood, but I didn't see him like trying to fight back. Oscar recently went at Draymond. I don't know if you saw that, and I actually asked that question as well out at All-Star Weekend at the Legends brunch, and Draymond went back at him a little bit, mocking his voice and saying that he was, probably in bed during Warriors games. So Draymond, as you know, attacks a little bit when he gets insulted, but Redick didn't fire back at anybody specifically.
Yeah. I wonder again, is this just a function mostly of having these conversations in an internet atmosphere? Because this sort of tension existed, but it didn't boil over. If you saw a lot of the NBA at 50 back in the day, whatever year that was in the 1990s, it was very warm. And yet there are stories of Wilt Chamberlain and Michael Jordan arguing over how Jordan might have had it easy or vice versa or whatever. But those were private conversations. And that was understood to be just part of the swashbuckling and part of the natural tension between generations. It didn't boil over. It was a very beautiful moment for the NBA where the young guys loved that they were part of this tradition and the older guys loved being honored. And somehow at 75, it's just not like that. And I don't know if we just blame the internet. Is it that simple?
The internet, maybe it's the media who's throwing flames onto the fire. Maybe it's just the generational thing where people today are too sensitive and guys back then could handle the heat a little bit because, again, guys like Wilt and Oscar were throwing haymakers at guys in the 1980s, right? And guys in the 1980s, as far as I can see, never said anything, negative or anything but deferential to those guys. You always hear Jordan, that quote that's floating about when they say, "Are you the greatest of all time?" And he says, well, that would be unfair to Oscar Robertson and Jerry West and some of the guys that played before me. For the most part, Kobe would make comments like that as well, going, well, debating that. And he would take a page out of Jordan's book. Whereas, you got LeBron today, where LeBron will come out and he'll tell you, I'm the greatest player of all time, and here's why. I'm sure that gets under the skin of some guys of the past who feel like they have an argument there as well. But I don't know why LeBron chose to go in that direction. But certainly to me, it is different than the way Magic and Bird and Jordan and some of those guys handled it when they were asked about being the greatest player of all time.
Yeah, I think I would say to the people, the guys who are making those arguments, worried about how the people from the past are dismissing them. It's a little bit like the old trust the process. Just trust the process of time, trust that you'll get your respect, Trust that we're not going to think that people from the 1970s were going to be so much better than you were. I saw Steph deal with so much of that. I saw the Warriors when they were this jump shooting
Yeah.
team dealing with so much of that. And you just keep doing it. I know I brought up Stephen A. Smith talking about some retired Hall of Famer saying Steph couldn't average more than 17 points in his era. Guess what? Nobody thinks that. Maybe that guy thinks that, maybe a couple other guys. Steph Curry is 37 years old. He is middle-aged as a superstar and still doing it. And I think he knows that he's getting his credit. And I think he knows that people aren't still holding on to that, because those sorts of dismissals and assumptions, they just fall by the wayside as the young generation rises and the older generation fades out. And you don't need to overstate the case. I just don't think it's necessary. I don't need to make the point that Giannis would dominate the 70s. It's just, for who? I mean, what is this doing? So look, this is LeBron James. This is part of the whole thing with him, where he is so great and he has remained so great for so long that we're going to be annoyed with him because he's still relevant and he's still part of the conversation.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is, like, people are so, caught up in, well, they're criticizing this, they're criticizing that. Like, is there massive criticism of Steph Curry? I know you had that Stephen A. Quote from a couple of days ago about scoring 17 points. And maybe Oscar initially said some negative things years ago about Steph. But for the most part, like, Steph is beloved, and he's treated like a guy that people enjoy watching. People aren't necessarily tearing him apart. Okay, there's minor things, like he hasn't won a Finals MVP yet, but I think
I think after he got the Finals MVP, it kind of ended it, and he was solidified.
Exactly.
And it was it.
Exactly. So I don't think that he's probably got a lot less criticism than, Magic and Jordan and Bird, etc. LeBron gets a lot of it, but LeBron also invites a lot of it because he's in the spotlight consistently and putting himself out there. So if you're going to, and he also says, like, criticize me about basketball, right? The other day in the Pat McAfee show, which is fine. Like, okay. He even brought up, like, okay, I didn't perform well in 2011. Get on my case for that. Here's what I would say, though. If you're going to consistently bring up things that aren't basketball and put yourself in that light, then you have to be open to getting criticized about that stuff.